Denim Couch Podcast. Ooh, whoa, ooh, whoa.
The 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s with Steph with an F.
Hi guys, welcome to the Denim Couch Podcast, where we chill on this denim couch and talk about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm Stephanie Tanner. Welcome. Hey guys, it's Stephanie Tanner with the Denim Couch Podcast. And today's episode is with Daria Hutch. And I actually interviewed Daria about her family in the 40s and 50s previously. So go check that one out if you haven't heard it. She has an incredible story that I fell in love with the second I found it. And I had to message her and ask her to share it with me if she was willing. And she is just amazing. I love this lady. I love her posts. She is an excellent photographer. I talk about that in the last episode I had with her. But yeah, we are on episode 31, and it is the 80s. And I think this might be my favorite. We'll see. But I am so stoked about the 80s. I've always loved the 80s. My mother grew up in the 80s, and it just looks incredible, and always wondered what it would like to live back then. So I will find out with these next 10 or so interviews. And Daria has the greatest posts ever. She can write like no one else. Her every single post is super deep and meaningful and uplifting and true and real life. And she has an awesome picture. If you've looked at the photo I posted for this episode, that is her in 1984, and she has the coolest style. It's just incredible. So I'm really excited to share this interview that I did with Daria a while back about the 80s, and she tells us all about her experience in the 80s. And this San Francisco mom is one of the coolest people I've interviewed. I love her posts. They are so entertaining. Go check her out. Her Instagram is Miss D Hutch, and every single post is amazing. And this week's just a chill week. One thing that I took from Daria's interview is something she said towards the end of the interview. She said, "You have everything you need to have a great life right in front of you." And I needed to hear that this week. Yeah, I have a great life right in front of me. I have everything I need, and I need to enjoy what I have right in front of me more than I do. I have the greatest family, the greatest kid. I'm blessed with many people around me. I've been thinking about how much I love people, and sometimes when people leave, I feel a little more empty. And I think my goal in life is just to surround myself with people that I love and be as close to those people as I can. And it's really my life goal. So hopefully you guys are able to now surround yourself with more people and really enjoy their presence in your life. Man, life is boring without them. And that was just the sweetest message I have heard in a long time. And with that, let's just dive in. How common was your name in the 80s?
Not very common. I have three older brothers who have very common names, Steve, John, and Tom. And I was the youngest and the only girl. So my mother wanted something exotic for me. So she picked Daria. My dad wanted to name me Lisa. Yeah, like later there's that on MTV, the Beavis and Butthead character, Daria. There was a show that was in the 80s, I think. So it started to become more popular then. And there's a Cake. The band Cake has a song, Daria, as well. So
I've got to listen to that.
Yeah, back then it was very uncommon.
What was life like in the 80s?
Well, I was in high school in the 80s, and so I graduated high school in 1986. It's funny, the post that came out, people remember the old John Hughes movies like Pretty
Mm-hmm.
in Pink and Breakfast Club. And I remember like going to see those and just like, yeah, that was my existence, like as a teenager, like, yeah, those movies like got the gist of it. Yeah. Like my fashion was very important to me back then. Like, yeah, like all the crazy hair and like some of the things I mentioned in that post, like Contempo Casuals was like this store that we would shop at, and like lots of neon. In high school, they called me Day Glow Daria because I'd like dress really bright, and and then Madonna just kind of came out, and she was so edgy, and
Mm-hmm.
just loved her. And I remember I got sent home from high school one day because I wore a black bra with like a mesh shirt over it with all the black rubber band bracelets up my arm.
Yes.
And having my bra showing was not okay. So I got sent home.
What did you do for fun in the 80s?
Music was like, I mean, and I think about like young people today, like so my dad was pretty strict, and he didn't let me go to concerts, but being a rebellious teenager, I wasn't going to let that stop me. So I would sneak and I would go anyways. I think like whatever era you grow up in, that music is so important to you. And so, yeah, like, Depeche Mode and Duran Duran and the Smiths. And I remember I grew up in the East Bay, and we would tell our parents like, "Oh, I'm sleeping at Angie's house," and Angie would say, "I'm sleeping at Daria's house," and we would all have this alibi, and then we would take BART, which is the train system in the Bay Area, to San Francisco, and which is like an hour away from where we lived. We'd take BART to San Francisco and go to concerts, or we'd go to this nightclub called the Palladium, which was 18 and up, but for some reason, like, carding people wasn't really a thing back then. So like if we would put on all the makeup and try to look as old as we could, and we would just go and just dance all night. And the club was open till 6 a.m. and then we'd take BART back and, hope that we didn't get caught. But yeah, just the music was defines that era for me. The music and the fashion.
What were some popular activities?
Where I grew up in the suburbs, in high school, like the sports of your high school was like a big deal. So like, Friday night lights, right? The football game was like, and all of my brothers played football. And so it was just kind of expected that I would be a cheerleader. And then around my sophomore year in high school, I kind of like felt like the cheerleader persona was not really me. I'm more of an introvert. I'm kind of artsy and odd. So I just felt like I was playing this role that wasn't mine. And that's when I started exploring different things like the drama club and writing and just kind of more the things that interest me today. So that was, I remember my junior year, if you were already a varsity cheerleader, which I was my sophomore year, you were a shoo-in, right? You didn't have to audition again. And I didn't want to try out for the cheerleading game. I was like, what? How could you give up that pinnacle of high school life and not want to do that anymore? And I just remember that being like, nobody did that. Just because the sports were just such an important part of that suburban life.
Do you have any favorite memories from the 80s?
So I haven't put this on my Instagram, but my dad married when I was 4 to a woman who had 3 children of her own. So we became a combined family. I kind of like to say it's like the Brady Bunch, but without the laugh track. There was a lot to say about that situation. And for me coming into that at 4, it was stressful for me as a child. So I don't have a lot of memories, like some that period of childhood. And actually the photographs have been great because like I'll see pictures from that time and I'll be like, oh, okay. It's bringing back some stuff for me. One fond memory I do have is after my dad remarried and he bought a big house. So 7 kids all of a sudden, all living together in a 3-bedroom house. And he built bunk beds in all the rooms because we all had to share rooms. And after he bought the house, we built a swimming pool in the backyard. And that was like the greatest thing ever, was having that swimming pool. I would live in that pool all summer until my hair was green. And so that's kind of like a happy childhood memory. It was kind of a luxury. We didn't have a lot of money. We weren't a wealthy family, but having that pool was just like, I felt like the Kardashians, like that was like the best. So I had 2 stepsisters and 1 stepbrother. I shared a room with my 2 stepsisters, so 3 girls in a room. So we had a triple bunk bed, which my dad built into the wall. And then the boys, the 2 oldest boys, my 2 older brothers shared a room, and then the 2 younger boys shared a room. So yeah, everybody had roommates.
What was the fashion like back in the 80s?
Yeah, fashion was a really big deal to me back then. And I loved getting Vogue and, where I grew up, it was not very, it was unusual, like kind of the outlandish fashion that I wore. And so, but it was just my way of expressing myself. So I would babysit, and so, my family didn't have a lot of money to buy the Calvin Klein jeans and, all of the stuff that I saw in the magazines at the time. And of course you would get your Aquanet hairspray and get your hair as big as possible. Yeah, but the stores that we would shop at, there was a store called Contempo Casuals, which I guess the equivalent now would be kind of like a Forever 21. Or H&M kind of store where it was just like, the latest stuff, but still kind of inexpensive. And then Express, which they still have today, the Limited Express. That was kind of like another store that had kind of a lot of fun stuff where I would shop. No online shopping back then. So I would try to get to San Francisco to get some more unique things when I could.
What made you happy back then?
Yeah, I think back in the 80s, I struggled finding happiness. It was, if I think back then, it was a lot of external things that you did to find happipiness, like going out dancing or having a new boyfriend or drinking or smoking weed, like that was like having fun and happiness. But I think like deep down, I wasn't really happy. I kind of had a lot of stuff to unwind, I guess, which I have. I've worked on it. And now I'd say like happiness is just being authentically you, whatever that means for you. I mean, it's different for everyone. I mean, I like experiencing the world. I mean, that's why like photography is really kind of a satisfying hobby for me. It allows me to stop and just see how beautiful things are. I love my family. I have a wonderful husband. We've been married 24 years and 2 daughters, which bring me a lot of happiness. But yeah, I'd say like what makes me happy is just living your truth, which took me a while to get there.
How would you compare your childhood or teenage years to today's kids?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, of course, I like being a parent now. I really think about that a lot. I mean, I think I had in my own childhood a lot of like dysfunction, a lot of like expectations put on me that weren't really me. Like I don't feel like children were just expected to obey, and like you, whatever your parents wanted you to do, you did. And so I think, I mean, you know, I live in San Francisco and we're very like peace and love here. But I think that my children go to this school that's like run by ex-hippies. And so like there's just a lot of like, I don't know, I feel like they have a lot more opportunity to express themselves than I think back then that I felt like that I had, in whatever way that means for them. And, you know, being a parent, you still, you know, it's hard to, because you know, you do want you worry about them and you want them to do well, but just kind of pulling back and just letting them become who they are. I think people are more aware of that nowadays, I think, or at least I am.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy to do because they're your babies. I'd say my advice is just like, do you, whatever that means. And I mean, I think about like social media, we compare ourselves to each other so much now. Like you see somebody else's life and you think like, I want that, or I want to be like that, but you have everything you need to have a great life, like right in front of you. I feel like people chase it, but you have what you need to be happy right where you are, if you choose to do so. That's kind of like the lesson that I had to learn to be happy. But something happened at one point and it just kind of clicked. Yeah, boy, did I take a lot of wrong turns getting to that point, for sure.
I love Daria's imagery of the 80s. I just think her fashion was excellent. She did a lot of 80s things, listened to music that was really important to her. She compared her life to a lot of 80s movies, and although it wasn't always easy, she has great lessons to be learned from her story. And like I said before, this lady posts the best messages on Instagram. They are so uplifting and just talk about humanity in general. She's amazing. I had the best time interviewing her. Thank you, Daria, for doing this. And yeah, with that, I will talk to you next week. Bye. Wait. You can't miss the embarrassing story of the week. No. Okay. It's that time. It's Steph with an F's embarrassing story of the week. Okay, so this week's embarrassing story was actually given to me by my sister. And although I'm sure I did many embarrassing things this week that I could list off, I got a kick out of this one. And so they were driving through Dairy Queen to pick up some ice cream. And Dairy Queen lately has been very busy. Quarantine really, I feel like, has spiked the sales of the Dairy Queen drive-thru. So they messaged us, Marco Polo'd us, after they had experienced this situation. So they go through the drive-thru, get blizzards. My sister's husband puts the blizzard in the cup holder, and they drive a little ways away. And my sister picks up the blizzard, and there's a napkin with a piece of gum stuck to the bottom of the blizzard. And they both just get extremely irritated. Apparently, my sister's husband was like, we're going to go back in. We're going to tell them this is insanitary. This is completely unacceptable. You know, they're getting all ramped up and ready to give the Dairy Queen workers a piece of their mind. And apparently my brother-in-law goes into Dairy Queen and they're all masked up. Everyone is wearing gloves. They're all behind the counter, and he was committed. He goes in and, you know, starts letting them know that how dare they be so unsanitary. And the lady kindly said to him, well, did you happen to put it in your cup holder, possibly? And this is the best part. He wasn't going to back down. And although at that moment he says he kind of knew what had happened, he wasn't going to give in, and he was committed to this role. So he said, we don't eat gum in the car. So apparently they have a very strict no gum policy in their car, but they are fine with eating blizzards in the car. So anyways, they gave him a free blizzard or something, and then he gets back in the car super embarrassed but fully committed to his role, and they just laughed about it the whole way home, that they were those people when it was their own mistake. Yeah, I thought that was good. Very entertaining. We all had a good laugh about it. Poor Dairy Queen worker. Although they had to know what he'd done. It was all him. And with that, I will see you next week. I'm so excited about next week's episode. It's very special to me, and you won't want to miss it. So talk to you then. Bye.
If you came here for mental health help, please go visit your doctor. If you're looking for some mental health tips, Dr. Daniel Amen is someone I follow. I love what he has to say and offer. I think his website is brainhealthassessment.com, and he just has some awesome checklist items that go over brain health, habits that you should be doing to have better brain health. I want to say there's like 5 to 10 items, and if you have those, if you're working on those habits and trying to improve them to improve your brain health, you'll also improve your happiness level, because brain health equals mental health. So keep your brains happy and healthy, and check out Dr. Daniel Amen. This is not sponsored. I just really like what he has to say, and I think it's really beneficial. I think it can help a lot of people. It's actually very matter of fact, kind of obvious, but yeah, we neglect so many of these habits daily, and I do feel like, if you're feeling unhappy, that may be one of the reasons you're unhappy, because you're neglecting your brain health, which is also your mental health, and yeah, trying to improve these habits could really help. So check him out. If you have any stories from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, please get in contact with me. Let's chat. I want nothing more than to chat about the past. I want nothing more than to chat about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you have any specific questions that I'm not asking that you would like to know about these eras while interviewing these people, please let me know. I would love some advice, and I would love your input. So, what would you guys like to know?